chose SDG as a supplier just for the reliability. Literally there's no issues with them whatsoever. We put an order in, it's delivered on time when we need it. Very good company to deal with. My name is Alan Farmer. I am manager here at AWP for O'Reilly Group. We're an architectural wall factory. We are based in Cavan. At the minute, our customer base is in Ireland and UK. Everything's produced in our facility. In-house, weather conditions doesn't really affect us, so it leaves it for site, so it's easier for site as well, faster, cheaper to put up.
SDG supply a lot of stuff for us, all stuff that's extremely important. Anytime at all I've ever emailed them or phoned them, always answer, and I mean straight away, constant, like they're always on the ball.
Our main philosophy would be relationship, service, product, price. So to build a relationship with your customers is number one. To be on the end of the phone, whenever they ring or an email, you always have to be there for them. You want to treat them like family, very much like O'Reillys. O'Reillys is a family-run business, just like SDG.
So we've been working with SDG over the last 15, 16 years. Through that length of time, we've got to know them, build up a relationship with them. Their product is second to none. Their quality can't compete. Price-wise as well, they're very competitive in their price, so very good to deal with.
Having a good relationship with our suppliers is extremely important, because you need something that is going into a wall, that you need that wall made, so you need to be able to ring them straight away. They need to be answered and you need to get it up the road. Literally, like, it's so important, so it is. I'll tell you one thing, which is the best experience I've had with them. If Alan was ever away, the lads would come in to me and ask me to order something, and then I'd put everything on a list, and then I had the list then for whenever I needed to reorder again. And I mean, I emailed them loads of times, not just once or twice, loads, and they always come straight back to me. I know I can rely on them.
SDG is the relationship that we do have with our customers. We don't treat them like customers, we treat them like friends and family, which is the main thing. Just always being there for them whenever they need, be a problem solver, making sure you have stock for them and giving them the best rate that they can and best rate and service that you can do.
SDG bring immense value on a daily basis to our business. What I would consider is the best thing to tell somebody to work with SDG would be that they're so helpful, that they have all the products you need in one place where you don't have to go to a load of different suppliers to get all the different things. They have everything there, and really helpful and really nice and just really great.
I would encourage anyone looking for construction solutions to get in contact with SDG, and they'll guide you in the right direction.